I never expected a father's heartbreaking sacrifice would lead to an unforgettable love story. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The fire crackled ominously, dancing shadows across the walls of our old wooden house. My heart raced. It was the sound of chaos, the shouts, the sirens, the panic straining the air. I can still hear my mother's voice, trembling, calling my name, her fear piercing through the smoke like a knife. In that moment, I felt both weightless and crushed. My father was out there. He rushed back into the blaze, the very heart of it, unafraid, driven by something deeper than courage, something primal. Pain shot through me as I watched the flames consume everything I knew. Memories clung to my skin like sweat, cloying and suffocating. That he was my anchor, my safe harbor, and we were close, too close to lose. Sorrow washed over me like a tidal wave, the salt of tears staining my cheeks. My best friend Sarah clutched my hand, her fingers trembling against mine, grounding me to the present. She was the only thing keeping me from floating away into the abyss of despair. And then, silence. A deafening pause, broken only by the distant sounds of a growing crowd. Their murmurs buzzed around me like angry hornets, the flames roared, and a figure emerged from the smoke, shadowy and uncertain. I squinted, hope flickering wildly within my chest. Was it him? Could my heart, coursing with a tangled mix of fear and longing, have been wrong? The hopes turned to smoke as the silhouette melted back into the blaze, leaving behind an echo of my father's laughter, warm and sweet, now hauntingly cruel, and then, a scream shattered the air. It was bone-chilling, a sound so raw, so agonizing, it stopped my heart. I turned toward the sound, dread pooling in the pit of my stomach. What had happened? This was no longer just a fire. It was a monster devouring everything that mattered to me. I gasped, instinctively grasping the hem of my shirt, the fabric damp from the chaos unfolding around me. Time slipped through my fingers like ash. My mother was by my side now, her face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. And my little brother, my little brother. I hadn't seen him since everything started. The weight of that thought alone was crushing. It felt like an eternity until I could breathe again. As if in answer to my unspoken fear, my mother whispered something under her breath. A secret? A prayer? My stomach twisted. I couldn't understand her words, but I could feel the tears pooling in her eyes. It was like our world, forever altered, had opened a dark hole that threatened to swallow us whole. Then, like an electric shock, the fire licked at the edges of my consciousness, begging for my attention. There was a choice to make. To stay paralyzed in fear, or to forge ahead into the unknown, uncovering the truths hidden beneath the flames. And my father's final decisions. What had he sacrificed? What had we lost, and how would we ever survive the aftermath? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The smoke cleared, revealing the skeletal remains of our home, but the devastation morphed the world into a surreal painting, colors running, bleeding into one another. All around me, faces blurred into a sea of grief, but I was alone in my turmoil, tethered only to fear and uncertainty. We were mere silhouettes against the backdrop of this tragedy, lost and unmoored. My mother sank to the ground, cradling her head between her knees, a small, vulnerable figure engulfed by despair. Sarah squeezed my hand tighter, her warmth sparking a flicker of life inside the numbing cold of my grief. But even her presence felt like a life-preserver tossed into an ocean of sorrow. I could hold on to her, but the waves of emotion continued to pound against me relentlessly. "Where's Danny?" I asked, the panic creeping into my voice. The frantic search through the crowd for my brother was becoming a terrifying ritual. Each face was a reminder that we had lost so much, and I felt myself unraveling under the weight of my own fright. "He was with your dad," Sarah said softly, her voice trailing off, a ghost hovering in the air. I inhaled sharply, images flashing in my mind of Danny's laughter, sparkling eyes, and how his small hand fit perfectly in mine. The thought that he might be lost too. The edges of my vision darkened as if the world itself was closing in, and all that remained was a hollow ache, resonating louder than the crackling flames. Just when the hollowness threatened to consume me entirely, I heard a voice cut through the chaos around me, gruff yet familiar. "What is going on here?" It was Mr. Patterson, our neighbor. He rushed toward us, concern etched into his weathered face, instinctively looking for survivors amidst the ashes. In his hand, a glimmer of hope stirred. "They've got the kid. They're bringing him out." Like a thread that was woven with shimmering golden light, those words threaded through me, igniting something deep within. I steadied myself as a group of firefighters appeared, their faces smudged with ash, their expressions filled with that unique mixture of exhaustion and resolve. They were our heroes, battling the unthinkable, and in that moment, the sheer intensity of their bravery filled me with fervor, but as they stepped forward, my heart lurched. In their arms, cradled like an injured bird, was Danny. He was unconscious but alive, and I could hear my heart hammering in joy while simultaneously shattering into a million pieces. The world around me melted away as they laid him gently on a stretcher. "Maggie!" He breathed, barely a whisper, but it was enough to wrap around my soul like a lifeline. I rushed forward, kneeled beside him, my heart splintering with each ragged breath he took. Sarah squeezed my shoulder, a gentle reminder that I wasn't alone. "He's going to be okay," she whispered, holding back tears. "He's here. You got this. He's strong." I brushed the hair off his forehead, the sweet, soft texture of it grounding me to reality. "I'm right here, Danny. I'm right here," I murmured, wishing with every ounce of my being that he could hear me. As he was rolled onto a medical bus, I hesitated, searching Mr. Patterson's eyes for reassurance. "What about Dad?" My voice tremored under the weight of uncertainty. Mr. Patterson's gaze fell, his silence a heavy cloak. His heart was breaking right alongside mine, and instead of the words I desperately sought, all I received was 1,000 unspoken fears. More sirens wailed in the distance, and the crowd began to swell. With every passing second, I felt the world pressing in, each heartbeat carrying the weight of unshed tears and unasked questions. The thought of what my father may have faced lingered like a constant shadow, reminding me that his sacrifice was not just for saving my brother. It was a testament to love in its purest and rawest form, but love, it seemed, could also break us irrevocably, reshuffling the unrelenting cards of grief. As I stepped away from the bus, I noticed the crowd was parting for a figure emerging from the smoke. My gut clenched, anticipation mingling with dread. Was it Dad? But as the figure drew closer, I felt the air still and grow heavy with a sense of foreboding. My heart fell as I recognized the face, a police officer, drenched in soot, but utterly foreign to me. He approached with an intensity that turned my stomach cold. "Maggie," he said, voice low, as if he was holding back the weight of something monumental. "I need you to come with me. There's something you need to see, something about your father." In an instant, the air shifted, the hope I'd clung to crumbling into dust. My world, once teetering precariously, was now hanging by a thread, and I felt the ground fall away beneath my feet as dread coursed through me. The kind of dread that whispered hidden truths lay just beyond my grasp. What had my father done? What sacrifice would reveal his true legacy? I took a deep breath, stepping into the unknown, knowing the answer would change everything. I followed the officer through the crowd, each step dragging me further from the warm glow of hope I had felt moments before. The world around me morphed into a blur, faces twisting into shadows of sympathy, whispers echoing like an ominous chorus in my ears. My heart raced, the thump of anxiety palpable, an urgent reminder that each beat could be the last tether I had to what remained of my family. "Maggie, your father," the officer began, glancing over his shoulder as if sensing my shallow breaths were struggling to keep up with the pace of my mind. He led me to an area cordoned off with yellow tape, the remnants of our neighborhood, a landscape that had crumbled under the weight of flames and despair. The smell of smoke burned my nostrils, a reminder that something precious had been lost beyond measure. "Wait here," he instructed, stepping away momentarily to speak with another officer. I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest, a terrifying cacophony that threatened to drown out everything else. I cast my gaze over the wreckage, desperate to see my father emerge from the haze, to clutch him tightly and assure myself that everything would be all right if he was by my side. But as the minutes ticked by, uncertainty gnawed at my insides. Each passing moment deepened the chasm of fear growing in my heart. My mind raced with images of my father bravely throwing himself into the flames, shouting for Danny to escape. Was he still trapped within that nightmare, lost among the ashes? The officer returned, but it wasn't just his presence that froze my breath, it was the look etched on his face, a combination of sympathy and disbelief. "Maggie," he started, his voice heavy, each syllable weighed down with more than he could bear. "There was an incident. Your father he was injured trying to get your brother out." For a heartbeat, time stood still. A breath caught somewhere deep inside me, but I didn't want to hear the ensuing words. I willed them to dissipate into the smoke that enveloped us. "Is he okay?" I managed to croak out, but my voice was shaky, each word barely coalescing into a coherent thought. I held on to the shred of love, the hope that somehow everything would be all right. "I'm sorry he's being taken to the hospital now," he said, knotting a piece of paper nervously in his hands. "There are complications." Complications? I felt the floor drop out from beneath me. Since when did love have complications? I scraped my memory for what I could recall about my father. The man with an unwavering sense of duty, who had taught me how to ride a bike, who cheered the loudest at our soccer games, the one who always winked at me, turning the mundane into magic. And yet now, he was a flickering flame in the dark, one that could snuff out at any moment. In that dismal moment, guilt crept over me like a wet blanket. I had enjoyed the warmth of hope, of expecting to see my brother awake and thriving, while my father, my other half, was suffering. In my clutching desperation, I had failed to consider the depths of his love, the sacrifices he must have been willing to make for us. "Can I see him?" I pressed, my voice steadying in urgency as I gripped my arm tighter, trying to ground myself. "Please, I need to see him." The officer hesitated, pain darting across his face as he took my hand, squeezing it with warmth that nodded towards a compassion that went beyond duty. "I'll get you there as quickly as I can," he promised, and although the sound of sirens grew nearer, I felt the clock ticking, consuming the last bits of my courage. My very being screamed to stay strong, that hope could flourish even in darkness. As we approached the waiting ambulance, something pulled at my attention, a flash of light through the smoke, glimmering like a shard of glass catching sunlight. I turned only to see Sarah standing near the wreckage, her eyes wide and full of fear. She hurried toward me, her hand clutching something seemingly insignificant, a tattered photograph. "Maggie, I found this," she said, her voice trembling, but her presence was imbued with strength. She extended the picture towards me, and as I took it, the sunlight broke through the clouds of grief, illuminating the image beneath the soot, a moment frozen in time. It was a photo of my father, Danny, and me at the beach last summer, laughter captured in a split second of joy. My father's arms were wrapped around us, beaming with a brightness that defied the shadow that now loomed over us. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I clutched the photograph to my chest. The officer looked between us, a flicker of understanding softening his gaze. "Hold on to that," he encouraged. "Memories can create a path forward." But just as I resolved to take that strength with me, the air shifted once again. From the depths of the ambulance, a scream fractured the silence, a worrisome cry that screeched through the haze, sending chills down my spine. I turned towards the sound, my heart racing back into turmoil. It was then I realized, I had been on the precipice of something greater, but the storm was just beginning, and the hidden truths about my father's sacrifice were waiting to unfold, truths that would shatter or bind us together in ways I never could have imagined. The inside of the ambulance felt like a foreign realm, an unsettling contrast to the chaos just outside. The sterile smell of antiseptic stung my nose as the officer ushered me through its doors. My heart raced, each beat resonating with the throbbing uncertainty that wove through every fiber of my being. Inside, my father lay on a stretcher, his face pale and covered in beads of sweat, the heroic fire in his eyes dimmed by pain. As I approached, the chaos of the outside world faded away, and all that mattered was the fragile man I loved more than life itself. "Dad?" I whispered, desperate for him to hear me. His eyes fluttered open, the recognition dawning slowly. "Maggie," he rasped, his voice strained but filled with warmth. In that fragmented moment, we crossed the abyss that had separated us. Words unspoken were felt deeply. Even in his current state, I could see the threads of unyielding love that stitched us together. "You're going to be okay," I said, though my conviction wavered. I wanted to believe it so deeply, to live inside the fragile bubble of faith that had buoyed me through countless storms before. As I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight in my own, I felt a tremor of uncertainty beneath his skin, like the flutter of a trapped bird too frightened to break free. The paramedic focused on a monitor, her brow furrowing with concentration as she called out numbers and instructions, but all I could center on was my father's gaze, his eyes a pool of sorrow and strength. "I tried to save him," he said, his words barely above a whisper, laced with both pride and fear. "Danny, I'm so sorry." His anguish echoed within me, igniting a spark of anger I never expected. Anger at the flames that had threatened to consume our family, at the cruel fate that seemed intent on stealing the very core of our existence. "You did all you could do," I assured him, but my voice trembled with the weight of my own unresolved fears, a deft dance between faith and despair. "He'll be okay, Dad. We'll get through this together." As a siren wailed outside, pulling me back into the noise of reality, I noticed the small tear in my father's shirt just above his heart. The fabric was stained and torn, evidence of the sacrifice he had made, his body a shield meant to safeguard the other half of my soul. Guilt crashed over me like a tsunami, almost suffocating in its intensity. "Why did you have to put yourself in danger?" I asked, the words tumbling out before I could tame them. "You shouldn't have done that." His brow furrowed deeper, a mixture of understanding and regret shadowing his features. "Because I love you both more than anything," he said, his voice barely a thread of sound, but it struck me like a lightning bolt. "Maggie, promise me," he paused, taking a deep breath, "promise me you'll always look after your brother." I nodded vigorously, tears spilling down my cheeks again. "I promise, Dad. I'll protect him." The sirens receded as we sped away from the remnants of our old life. I felt a shifting tide of emotions, a tumultuous sea of determination and dread swirling within me. For every promise made, there was a lurking fear of what was truly at stake. What if saving my brother meant losing my father? Just then, the ambulance hit a bump, sending my heart into another frantic rhythm. I glanced at the paramedic and saw her tense. My father's heart rate monitor began to beep erratically. "His blood pressure is dropping," she shouted, her voice commanding and urgent. "Dad!" I cried, gripping his hand tighter, feeling the life slipping from him like sand through my fingers. "Don't leave me. Please, don't leave." But even as I screamed into the void, the fraying connection between us threatened to dissolve. I felt his grip weaken, the warmth of his hand fading, and despair threatened to consume me. I desperately sought to remember every moment, every laugh, every lesson, clinging to the memories that had threaded our lives together. Suddenly, the ambulance burst through the hospital doors, and I was propelled back into the chaotic world of shouts and frantic movements. Nurses rushed past, and they whisked my father away just as I tried to follow. "No, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "I need to stay with him." A nurse turned to me, her expression softening amidst the chaos. "You'll have to wait here, sweetheart. They're doing everything they can." I felt my legs turning to jelly beneath me, slowly sinking against the cold wall of the waiting room. Desperation coursed through my veins like ice, and my heart teetered over the edge of an unfathomable abyss. Everything I held dear was out of my reach, and the fear of losing not just my father but my entire family was all-consuming. Minutes turned to hours, the clock on the wall ticking methodically as time stretched agonizingly. As I waited, an unexpected presence settled beside me. It was Sarah, her brows furrowed in kindred pain, but in her eyes, there was something else, an echo of hope. "Maggie," she said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're not alone in this. I'm here for you and Danny, whatever happens." Just then, a doctor appeared at the doorway, and my heart leapt with both anticipation and dread. "Maggie," he began, and that single word hung like a noose around my throat. The room spun, the weight of the unknown crashing against me like ocean waves. All I could do was brace myself for whatever news awaited, tears glistening as I whispered a silent prayer, bracing for the storm I felt lurking on the horizon. The sterile air in the waiting room felt heavy as I sat in silence, the clock ticking with a cruel indifference. Each second felt like an eternity as I wrestled with fears that twisted my insides: fear for my father, fear for what losing him would mean, and fear for my brother, who was still out there, away from my reach. Sarah's presence beside me offered a momentary balm, her warmth a tether to reality, even as the world around us blurred into a haze of anxiety. "My mom's on her way," she said softly, trying to fill the quiet space with something tangible. "She'll want to be here for you, too." I nodded but didn't trust my voice to respond. Her comfort was a flickering flame against the darkness, but I could feel my heart beating wildly, disconnected from the steely resolve I tried to project. The doctor lingered at the doorway, and my gut twisted as he hesitated, as if weighing the weight of his words. "Maggie, may I speak with you?" Every instinct shouted to cling to Sarah tightly as I stood, but I knew I had to follow, fear and hope intertwined like twisted roots within my chest. I glanced back, my eyes pleading with her to join me, but she gave me an encouraging nod, one that reminded me I wasn't entirely alone even in this moment of isolation. The doctor led me down a stark hallway, fluorescent lights flickering like the pulse of an irregular heartbeat. I caught glimpses of nurses hurrying past, their faces animated with purpose, and each step seemed to lead me deeper into a foreboding reality I struggled to confront. "Maggie," the doctor began, his tone measured but heavy with the burden of his profession. "Your father sustained serious injuries during the incident. We're doing everything we can, but I need you to understand the situation is critical." My heart plummeted as those words echoed in my mind like a death knell. "What do you mean critical?" I whispered, the air feeling thick and unyielding. He took a breath, his expression pained but resolute. His heart was severely affected. "We've stabilized him for now, but he's on the edge. The next few hours will be crucial. Can't you do anything more?" I pressed, the desperation curdling in my throat. "You have to save him." He nodded gently, his eyes compassionate yet regretful. "We're trying everything. All I can say is cherish the moments you have with him right now." The weight of his words sank like a stone in my chest. My heart raced, and I could barely process the reality that enveloped me. Was there a way I could reach out beyond the fragile veil of life and death that had settled around us? I wanted to fight for my father. I needed to be strong, not just for him but for Danny. That I returned to the waiting room, where Sarah still waited, her eyes heavy with worry. "What did he say?" she asked, concern creasing her brow. That I swallowed hard, letting the breath out slowly through my teeth. "He's critical. We might not have much time," I managed, the tears spilling over again. Before I could lose myself in despair, Sarah took my hand, and her grip anchored me. "Then we make every moment count," she said firmly, a faint glow of determination igniting between us. "Let us focus on what we can do right now." "What do you mean?" I asked, confusion mingling with anguish. "We can create a space for your dad. We can remind him how much he is loved." She stood up fully, her resolve palpable. "Let us get Danny and gather everyone who cares about him. We need to show him he's not fighting alone." Part of me hesitated, uncertain if Danny was in a position to be brave amidst all this fear. Nevertheless, the flicker of Sarah's suggestion felt like a spark igniting my own determination. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. You're right. He needs to know he is surrounded by love. As we moved through the hospital, navigating the maze of waiting rooms and corridors, a resolute warmth began to seep through the cracks of my despair. Sarah's presence illuminated the darkness, the path forward starting to look less daunting. Finally, we reached the area where they kept families of patients. I found Danny seated in a corner, much too small amidst the vastness of the hospital's sterile environment, his face pale and eyes lost. At the sight of him, my heart ached anew. My little brother had always looked to the horizon with curiosity, and now he appeared so small, so vulnerable. Danny, I said softly as I approached, kneeling beside him. He looked up, eyes wide and uncertain. The innocence of youth shattered by fear and loss. Hey, it's okay. We're going to get through this together. I overheard, he said quietly, the admission breaking my heart. Is Dad he really? I took a breath, steadying myself. Dad is strong. He loves us, and we need to remind him of that. Can you do that for me? Danny nodded slowly, swallowing back his own tears. For a moment, we locked eyes, and though despair flickered just beneath the surface, I could see the flicker of courage beginning to form. I want to see him, he whispered, desperate yet resolute. As we moved back toward my father's room, the pressure of anticipation weighed heavy. I felt a new determination blossoming within me, fueled by the love we shared. Perhaps between the three of us, we could forge our own kind of miracle. Then the unthinkable happened. Just as we approached the door, a loud commotion erupted down the hall. I turned to see a group of doctors rushing towards us, their expressions grim. The heaviness of the moment slammed into my chest, a fist squeezing tighter around my lungs. What was happening? A voice within me screamed as fear grasped my heart. I locked eyes with Sarah, who paled, and we silently asked each other if we were witnessing the beginning of the end. Could we even keep our resolve in the face of what was to come? And just as I felt my breath hitch, drowning in a whirlpool of escalating fear, the door to my father's room swung open. A nurse rushed out, her demeanor taut, and she called down the corridor, her voice echoing like a siren, "We need a crash cart now." The world shifted beneath my feet, and I grasped Danny's hand tight as the impending dread crashed over me like a merciless tide. What lay on the other side of that door? Would we find hope or heartbreak? The question hung heavy in the air, waiting for an answer that felt far too close yet achingly out of reach. The cold steel of the hospital corridor felt even more unwelcoming as the commotion intensified around us. I could hardly hear my own heartbeat over the chaos, yet it echoed loudly in my ears, a constant reminder of the fleeting time we might have left with my father. I squeezed Danny's hand, feeling his small fingers trembling against my palm. Fear rippled through us both, pulling us taut like a wire ready to snap. Sarah moved instinctively, stepping between us and the door as if to shield us from whatever happened next. "We need to stay calm," she whispered, glancing back at a man in scrubs rushing past, his face grim yet focused. "They're going to do everything they can." "Is his dad going to be okay?" Danny asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The little boy diminished under the weight of it all. The innocence of his question sent a shiver through my spine. How could I promise him that when the shadows loomed so large? "Of course he will," I lied, forcing confidence into my tone, even as doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. "He is a fighter." But the uncertainty simmered just beneath the surface, clawing at my throat. I couldn't let Danny see my fear. Moments stretched into an eternity. Nurses darted past, their hurried footsteps ravenous with urgency. I couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out, each second sinking into an abyss that threatened to swallow us whole. I scanned the room, searching for a familiar face, anyone who could reassure us. Then I caught sight of a fellow patient's family, a woman whose eyes mirrored my own anguish as she gripped her husband's hand. It struck me how intertwined our lives were here, strangers united by the common thread of pain, their silent suffering echoing my own. I looked back at Danny, and despite the gravity of our situation, I needed his fingers in my hand, weaving a fabric of strength from the touch. Then, the door swung open, and a doctor stepped out, the lines on his forehead carved deeper by the moment. I could hardly breathe as he approached us. "Maggie?" he called, his voice steady yet tinged with the fragility of life. I felt the warmth of Sarah at my side, her reassurance coursing through me. With hesitation, I stepped forward. "How is he?" The doctor's eyes dropped briefly, as if peering into an abyss of emotions too complex to articulate. "We've been able to stabilize your father momentarily," but he hesitated, the weight of his next words poised like a sword. "We need to discuss some options. It's likely there will be complications. Then we'll fight. Whatever it takes," I volunteered, each word spilling out in a defiance I didn't fully feel. But the hope in my heart flickered dimly, battling against the encroaching darkness. The doctor nodded slowly. "That's the spirit we want. There are procedures we can try," but he trailed off, his expression shifting as he surveyed Danny. My brother's small frame trembled, his trust hanging by the thread of my words. "Is there a way to explain it to him?" I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. "He deserves to understand, doesn't he? I can't let him think everything is lost. Let us gather everyone. I recommend we prepare for the possibility that your father may not wake up again," the doctor suggested, carefully choosing his words. "Family can often bring comfort, the choice will be yours, but I want to make sure you're prepared for what comes next." The world around me faded to white noise as I processed his words. When had all this happened? When had life turned upside down? I could feel the desperation threading itself deeper into my heart. My father wasn't just a patient. He was the anchor of our family, and I would not let him drift away without a fight. Turning back to Danny, I knelt and looked him in the eye, desperately searching for the words to soothe his spirit. "Listen, buddy. Dad is fighting for us. He needs to know how much we love him. Your love can reach him, and it might just be the strength that pulls him back." Danny nodded, his courage wavering but present. "But what if he doesn't wake up?" My voice caught in my throat. But resolve fueled my next words. "Then we will be there to let him know it's okay to let go. We'll remind him he's not alone, ever. Love doesn't just disappear, Danny. Not even in the hardest times." A flicker of understanding shone in his eyes. He was still my brave little brother, the one who faced the world with unwavering hope. "Okay, Maggie," he whispered, his voice stronger now. "Let us go fight together." With thankfulness welling in my heart, I drew Danny into my arms, holding him close as we walked back toward my father's room. The pain of loss lingered, but it was momentarily overshadowed by the love we had for each other, a beacon guiding us through the darkness. As we reached the door, I found Sarah standing before us, a maternal spirit in her steady gaze. She leaned in closer, whispering, "Whatever happens next, I'm right here with you." In that moment, as our small circle united for the battle ahead, the faintest glimmer of hope surfaced amid our fears. We were not merely waiting, we were gathering our strength, preparing to show my dad the love that could bridge any chasm, even one as deep as this. But just as we were about to enter, a loud alarm echoed from the room. The sound sliced through the air, igniting a primal fear within me as the nurse's voice rang out urgently. "We need more help. He's losing consciousness." Time slowed, stretching the fabric of reality until it felt like I was suspended in agony. My heart lurched, and with each second that passed, the hope we had nourished flickered like a fragile flame in the wind, threatening to extinguish under the weight of our despair. And in that harrowing moment, as I feared we were losing everything, the door swung wide open, and before my eyes, I saw my father, struggling but conscious, his deep-set eyes meeting mine. For an instant, the room grew silent, and every soul held its breath as if the world itself had stopped turning. Then he whispered something that I couldn't quite make out, but the urgency in his expression cut through the chaos like a beacon. Danny's grip tightened around my hand, and all at once, it became clear, this wasn't just about holding on. We had to let him know that love is stronger than fear, that it could pull him back from the brink. Without knowing what fate held for us beyond that threshold, we stepped forward together, ready to face whatever reception awaited us, united in our desperate love and determination. The room felt electric with dread as we crossed the threshold, each step burdened by the weight of unspoken fears. I scanned my father's face, searching for any sign of reassurance, but what met me was a depth of vulnerability I had never seen before, the shadows of worry etched around his eyes. He was fighting, he was still here, but he seemed distant, like a flickering flame in the wind, and I hated the thought that it might be extinguished. "Dad!" Danny exclaimed, his voice filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty. He rushed forward, planting himself right beside the bed, his small stature dwarfed in the presence of the machines that surrounded my father, a living testament to the fragility of life. "Hey, Buster," Dad croaked, lifting a shaky hand to ruffle Danny's hair. There was a softness in his voice that momentarily distracted me from the chaos of medical equipment beeping around us. He was still the dad we knew, but I could see the toll that this fight had taken. "How are you doing?" I asked, already knowing the answer but desperate to elicit any sort of connection that could tether him back to us. "I've seen better days," he replied, managing a faint smile that barely reached his eyes. "But I'm fighting for you guys." His voice faltered, each word a labor as if the effort itself cost him dearly. Danny sat on the edge of the bed, desperate for closeness. "You gotta get better, Dad. You promised we'd go fishing this summer." The sincerity of Danny's words caused a lump to rise in my throat. Fishing. That was our family tradition. The thought of taking Dad away from the chase of sunlight glinting on the water felt unbearable. "You'll be out on that boat in no time, Dad. We have all summer ahead of us," I assured him, though my insides twisted at the uncertainty lurking just out of sight. At that moment, a nurse rushed in, her arms laden with supplies. She took one look at my father's condition and instantly began adjusting the four. "We're going to need to monitor him closely," she stated, her tone clipped yet professional. "I'll be back shortly." With that, she slipped out, leaving a silence heavy with unspoken fears. "Dad, the doctor said there might be complications." I hesitated, finding it hard to form the words, as if naming the beast would give it power over us. "He wants to talk to all of us soon." The tension in the air thickened palpably. "What kind of complications?" Dad's voice was sharper now, the weariness giving way to a flicker of concern. "Maggie, just tell me the truth." Tears pricked at my eyes, but I swallowed them down, forcing myself to be the anchor. "We'll face it together," I promised, determination solidifying in my chest. "No matter what happens, we're all in this. You're not alone." But Danny's innocent curiosity shifted the atmosphere yet again. "Will you stay awake for the fishing trip, Dad? You can't get tired on the boat like you did last time." His small plea was laced with an honesty that felt like a knife, cutting deep into the hope I was clinging to. Out of nowhere, my father's expression shifted. It morphed into something earnest, almost grave, as he turned to me, a gesture laden with urgency. "Maggie, love what you have, because moments they're precious. You never know." The warning sank into the air like a lead weight, pushing against my heart. I wanted to scream at him that he was wrong, that it wasn't tea time yet. But a sinking realization threatened to unravel me. What if he knew something I didn't? What was dancing behind those words? At that instant, Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face etched with concern. "I didn't want to interrupt, but we need to gather the family now. The doctor is asking for everyone." I nodded, my heart pounding in my ears. "Right. We'll be there," I managed, glancing between my father and Danny. The weight of impending words lay heavily on me, and I knew this was only the beginning, the calm before a terrifying storm. As I turned to exit the room, my father called out, his voice fragile yet firm. "Wait. Maggie. Promise me something." I stopped, the seriousness of his tone causing my breath to hitch. "Anything, Dad. Promise me whatever happens next, you take care of him." His gaze flicked to Danny, who was now looking up at me, confusion in his young eyes. You're all he has." The raw affection in his words struck a chord within me, igniting something primal and protective. I nodded, affirmation spilling forth because I had to keep this promise. It was a promise to him, to us, and to the family we were trying to hold together overnight. Of course, Dad, I whispered, biting back the tears threatening to break free. I'll always take care of him. I promise. With that vow hanging in the air, I gathered Danny's small hand into mine, and we followed Sarah down the hall toward the conference room, our hearts marching in sync, powerful yet fragile, threading together the layers of fear and hope that enveloped us. But as I crossed the threshold into the sterile room, another voice echoed in my mind, almost a premonition. Love and sacrifice were intertwined in a dance I knew all too well. Just when I thought I'd found solid ground, something shifted beneath me, and I realized this new conversation with the doctor held more than just the fate of my father. It contained the heartbeat of our family. As we stepped inside, the door swung shut behind us, sealing off the bright lights of the corridor and immersing us in an unsettling silence. The doctor stood waiting for us, and the tension loomed heavy in the air, a ticking clock on the brink of something irrevocable. But just as I was preparing to face the uncertain tide, a thought pierced my heart like a cold splinter. What if my father's fight was not just against the disease but against something much larger lurking right beneath the surface of our smiles? And in that moment, I sensed it, an unnameable fear, a chilling realization that the upcoming conversation might unravel not just the future of our father but the very fabric of our family's love. The room felt stark and sterile, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as we took our seats. My heart raced as I counted the faces around the table. Sarah on my right, a mix of calm and concern etched on her brow, Danny, clutching at my hand with a grip that was both innocent and urgent, and across from me, the doctor shuffling papers, seemingly preparing not just for a conversation but for a reckoning. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against what might come next. "Thank you all for coming," the doctor began, his voice measured as he glanced up from the notes. He cleared his throat, and my stomach twisted at the formality that clung to his every word. "I wish I had better news. Your father's condition has progressed more rapidly than we anticipated." Each word dripped like heavy rain, saturating the moment with dread. I felt Danny's little body stiffen beside me. He didn't understand, not yet, the implications of the words abstracted by medical jargon. "What does that mean?" he asked, a whisper of vulnerability laced with confusion. My body tightened as I prepared to shield my brother from the pain. It means we need to talk about next steps," I interjected, hoping to redirect focus before the realization shattered him. The doctor nodded, his eyes softening at Danny. "We want to do everything possible to ensure your dad's quality of life remains a priority during this time. But there will be harder decisions to make. We should discuss palliative care options." I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the prick of anger surfacing like a leviathan. "You mean," I stammered, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Giving up?" The doctor let out a slow, deliberate breath. "Not giving up. It's about enhancing the quality of life he has left. We need to consider what your father would want." The bile rose at the back of my throat. What he would want? He wants to fish, to watch Danny grow up. He's not done fighting. My words spilled out sharp, reflecting desperation mixed with rage. A knot curled in the back of my mind. Was I really prepared to face any decision that might mean surrendering him to this cruel twist of fate? "Mom," Danny's little voice cut through the tension, fragile like glass. He looked up at me, eyes wide and glistening. "Is Dad going to die?" The weight of his innocence crushed any retort resting on my lips. I wrapped my arm around him, drawing him close as painful memories washed over me like the waves crashing against the shore where we used to fish together, a reminder of a time when life felt easier, when love was simply a summer adventure. "No, sweetheart," my voice trembled, "not if we can help it. We'll do everything to help him. I want Dad to be here for the fishing. Promise me he'll be okay." Danny's plea hung in the air, raw and earnest. "How do you promise something you can't guarantee?" I felt the cracks in my facade beginning to reveal themselves. "I'll do my best, Danny. I swear it," I said, trying to summon the strength I didn't feel. But my heart was a tempest of confusion and despair. As the discussion went on, I caught snippets of words about pain management, quality of life, and support. My mind raced with the weight of implications. What choices lay before us? What would our lives be without Dad? A loud knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts, the door swinging open to reveal a nurse with an urgency in her stance. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we received some unexpected test results that need immediate attention." Each word hit like a hammer against the fragile walls we were trying to maintain. The doctor straightened, moving to follow the nurse, and I felt the dark clouds of panic gathering again. "I'll be right back. Please hang tight," he said, his voice distant as he walked away. The moment we were left alone felt surreal. The air thickened, shadows closing in around the edges of the room. Danny looked up at me, his small fingers tightening further around my own. "What is going to happen now, Maggie?" he asked, the tremor in his voice betraying the courage he was trying to project. I don't know yet. But we're going to fight, Danny. We're going to keep fighting." I whispered fiercely, gripping his hand like a lifeline. "And we'll have every moment we can." As silence descended, the weight of the uncertainty hung uncomfortably between us, and for the first time, I could sense that my promise was fragile, presented over a precipice that threatened to leave our lives in ruin. Just then, the doctor returned, a fresh determination in his eyes. "I need you all to listen," he said, an edge of urgency in his tone. "There's a chance we've discovered something, a potential option for treatment that could change the course of everything. It's experimental, but if it works, do it." I leapt out of my seat, hope threading through the despair like wildfire. "Whatever it takes." He nodded, his expression giving away the seriousness of the situation. "I will, but I need your father's consent. I can tell him about it, but ultimately it is his choice. We need to act fast." It felt like being struck by lightning, the jolt of possibility igniting the air around us. But the burden of being a decision-maker weighed heavily in my chest. The finality of my father's choice lingered like a stubborn echo. "Will you come with us to talk to him?" I asked, fear creeping into my voice. What if he doesn't want to? My heart raced as I exchanged glances with Sarah, holding her breath, matching my fear as the stakes grew higher. "Whatever happens next, we will face it together," the doctor assured us. But in that moment, I sensed another storm brewing. There was a delicate balance here, one that involved not just my father's choice, but the very essence of our family. The love and sacrifices that bound us were intertwined at this precipice of hope and despair. As we walked toward my father's room, the air was thick with expectation and fear, the darkness whispering of challenges yet to come, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to step into an emotional abyss, where the line between love and loss was razor thin. Yet, I steadied myself and breathed deeply, knowing I had to be strong. With every heartbeat, I could feel the stakes rising, until one haunting possibility clawed at my mind. What if this option was a fleeting hope, a shadow dancing over real demons lurking underneath? And with it, the sobering thought emerged again: could we withstand the choices we were about to confront? In my gut, I feared this moment would redefine us all. As I pushed the door open, the weight of that unknown possibility loomed larger than the fight I knew awaited us. What would my father choose? And would we ever return to the simplicity of fishing trips, innocent laughter, and cherished moments, or would we be irrevocably changed in ways we couldn't yet comprehend? The faint beeping of the machines met us as we stepped into my father's room, and the air felt thick with an unspoken weight. The curtains had been drawn against the sun, casting the space in a muted glow that reflected the cold sterility of the clinical setting. My father lay there, a shadow of his former self, surrounded by the whispers of his battle with illness. "Hey, Dad," I managed to croak, willing a smile onto my face as though it could illuminate the darkness hanging around us. "It's me, Maggie." He turned his head slightly, eyes flickering open, a tired smile fighting for dominance against the fatigue etched into his features. "Hey there, kiddo," he murmured, his voice hoarse, but sweet like the memory of home-cooked meals. There was a softness in his gaze, even though I saw the shadow of pain lurking behind it. "What have you brought us today?" he asked, a hint of teasing in his tone, reminding me of our trips to the fishing hole, casting lines into the water, hopeful for whatever might bite. But today, the weight of our reality beckoned for a different kind of conversation that I glanced at Danny, who had taken a hesitant step forward, clutching a small stuffed fish, the same one he had taken on countless adventures, now an emblem of innocence in this stark sea of uncertainty. "Dad, look. I brought Mr. Floppy. He says flying fish are coming to visit," Danny said with a naive cheerfulness that was hard to suppress. My heart twisted at the sight of his small frame so resilient in the face of such overwhelming sorrow. "That will be nice, buddy. Tell Mr. Floppy to fly in with some miracles," my father replied, his smile dim but genuine, like a flickering candle battling a gust of wind. "Dad," I began, fighting to hold back the swell of emotion threatening to overcome me. "There is something we need to talk about." He nodded, anticipation mingled with an understanding that rippled through the air between us. "I know things are complicated," he said, his voice steady but laced with the tremors of fear. "You have something to tell me?" "Yes," I whispered, feeling Sarah step beside me, her loyalty a grounding force as the doctor entered, a stack of papers in his hands, medical jargon waiting to weave our fates. This was it. "There's a new treatment," I started, my voice cracking slightly under the gravity of the moment. "It's experimental, but it could give you more time." The room pulsated with the tension of the offering, and while my heart surged with hope, I felt the familiar pang of fear. What if this new option was as precarious as it felt? What if it opened doors to more pain rather than the promise of better days? He took a deep breath, the weight of it reverberating through the silence. "And, what would that entail?" he asked, brimming with the sort of perseverance that only a father could summon in the face of heart-wrenching truth. The doctor stepped forward, carefully articulating the details, side effects, the risks, the faint flicker of possibility intertwined with uncertainty. My father listened intently, nodding occasionally, his face a landscape of mixed emotions: hope, fear, regret. Danny fidgeted beside me, soaking in each word with the innocence only a child could possess. "Dad, you have to do it." His voice squeaked, a mixture of urgency and love. "You need to be there for our fishing trips." Tears welled up in my father's eyes, a testament to the life he knew would never be the same again. "You know I'd always be there for you, Danny," he replied, his voice strong yet quivering. That I squeezed Danny's hand tighter, turning my gaze to my father, desperate for his strength to radiate through my own trembling spirit. "Dad, we'll do this together. No matter what your choice is, you don't have to face it alone," I asserted, wishing my words could anchor us all against the storm gathering outside. That he closed his eyes briefly, a moment of reflection transforming the air laden with his thoughts. "I've tried to be strong for you both. I've fought every step of the way, but, is it selfish to want to let go?" At that moment, I understood the complexity of his heart, this weighty decision that transcended our wish for time together. It festered inside him like a visceral struggle, one that made me question the fine line between love and pain. I felt the tears landing softly on my cheeks, mirrors to the ones brimming over my father's lids. "No, Dad. It's not selfish," I said, my voice breaking. "It's human. And whatever you decide, you have to do it for you. Not for us." The vulnerability in the room caught us all off guard, a shared resonance that forced us to confront our feelings head-on. In that moment, I could see the impossible choices ahead of us, the bittersweet dance between holding on and letting go. Just when the room seemed thick with unresolved emotions, a knock echoed through the door. A young nurse stepped in with an unfamiliar urgency, and my stomach sank momentarily, anticipating unsettling news. "Excuse me, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Your father's blood work has indicated some unexpected results." My heart stopped. The thrum of anxiety surged back, clawing at the back of my throat as questions rushed in. What did that mean? Were we facing another possible complication? The doctor shot the nurse a concerned look. "What do you mean? Has something changed?" Watching the exchange sent a chill through me, as a torrent of questions threatened to drown what little hope had begun to bloom between us. We were already balancing on the edge of an emotional chasm, and a new threat now loomed, dark and unfathomable, a harsh reminder that our battle was far from over. As Danny looked up at me, confusion flashing in his eyes, my heart sank deeper still. What does that mean for my dad? He whispered, the innocence of a child meeting the harsh shadow of reality. The revelation of new findings hung in the air like a warning, charging the atmosphere with the gravity of our impending decisions, stretching the lines we had been drawing between hope, loss, and resilience. What would happen next? And could we survive the choices coming our way if the future we hoped for was stolen from our grasp? Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a clock ticking down to an inevitable consequence we were not yet prepared to face. I gripped Danny's hand tighter, bracing for the storm of emotions that were yet to come, uncertain of what lay ahead on this treacherous journey we were all bound to navigate together. The hospital room felt both impossibly small and overwhelmingly vast in the moments that followed the news. My heart thudded relentlessly in my chest, pulsing with a frenetic energy that mirrored the chaos washing over me and my family. It felt like a storm was brewing, a tempest of questions and fears swirling with no resolution in sight. Unexpected results? My father echoed, confusion knitting his brow deeper. What does that mean? Is it good news? I could feel the weight of his hope pressing down on us, heavy like the air before a rainstorm, and I wished desperately to shield him from the impending downpour. The nurse, filled with an unspoken urgency, moved closer, her eyes darting to the doctor for confirmation. The preliminary results indicate a mutation in the cells. We need to discuss targeted therapy options, but this could open more possibilities for treatment, she stated, her voice steady yet thick with a gravity that demanded attention. There was an underlying flicker in her expression, a glimmer of hope that I clung to but struggled to fully understand. Mutations? My father's voice trembled, an indistinct mixture of fear and curiosity wrestling for control. That can be good or bad, can't it? He turned his gaze to me, searching for reassurance, and I felt my heart crack beneath the pressure of his uncertainty. This was his life on the line, his chance to battle or to succumb, tethered to the whims of hope and despair. That I took a deep breath, allowing the air to fill my lungs, drawing upon every flicker of strength. Dad, we'll face this together, I said softly, my own voice shaky but determined. This gives us more options, right? More chances. The doctor nodded, his demeanor changing, lips pressed into a thin line. Yes, it certainly does present new opportunities. What we know is that this mutation may respond favorably to specific therapies. But we must be cautious and consider the implications. His gaze fell on me, projecting a challenge. He wanted to gauge how far I was willing to fight for something bigger than myself. Danny, who had been quiet, processing the exchange, finally spoke up. Is that like a superhero? If Dad has a mutation, that makes him stronger, right? His innocent take breathed fresh air into the thickening tension, tears pooling in my eyes as I looked at him. It broke my heart that he was still searching for good in the overwhelming circumstances. That's right, Danny, I affirmed, taking his hand in mine. Just like a superhero, Dad can become even more powerful with the right help. We won't let anything stop him. I glanced at my father, praying he could hear the resolve in my voice and feel the warmth of unwavering love enveloping him. We need to keep fighting, Dad. In that moment, I could see the flicker of hope rekindling within my father's eyes, even as fear still shadowed his expression. Okay, he finally said, determination fighting through the pain. Let us explore this together. I'll do whatever I can to make this work. A weight seemed to lift, creating space for the faint sound of laughter, a precious reminder that joy could still resonate within grief. That's my dad, I whispered, heart swelling with pride. The doctor began laying out the next steps, speaking with clarity and confidence about potential treatments and the realities we faced. But the words were drowned out by the racing thoughts in my mind, a cacophony of fear, hope, and questions yet to be answered. Each flicker of information felt like a promise hanging in the air. Can we tell the family? I asked suddenly, my heart racing as the thought fluttered into existence. Everyone should know there's hope, right? They need to be part of this fight. My voice felt steadier, more grounded in the belief that love could bind us through the most terrifying battles life presented. Absolutely, the doctor confirmed, glancing toward the hallway. The more support, the better. As we moved toward the door, preparing to bring together our family, I noticed a change in atmosphere, even the air tinged with excited anticipation, a fleeting breath of possibility following us like a shadow on our journey. There was something profoundly heartwarming in the prospect of sharing this news. The weight might not lift completely, but it felt lighter, more manageable when I knew we were all in this together. That we found the rest of the family gathered in the waiting room, anxious expressions fleeting across their faces as we entered. I spotted Sarah leaning against the wall, worry etched into her features. She looked as if she had been holding on to hope for dear life. And there, at the center of it all, was my mother, fragile yet resilient, her eyes filled with unspoken fears as she looked up at us. "Mom, everyone," I said, gripping Danny's hand tightly, my voice unwavering. "We have news. There's a chance for Dad to take on this fight with a targeted treatment. It could open new pathways." A murmur of gasps rippled through the room, shock and tentative hope stitched together in their expressions. I could see shifting emotions flicker across their faces as the nerves heated the air between us. There was fear of what lay ahead, intertwined with a glimmer of faith that we might just defy the odds. "Really?" my mother barely whispered, looking between us, hope ignited in her gaze, searching for confirmation that this wasn't just a fragile dream. "Yes," I breathed, allowing a sense of warmth to wash over me. Couldn't help but smile, finding strength in the fierce solidarity now gathering around us. "This means we have time. We can do this together." As anxious questions filled the air, my father's fragile yet steadfast voice rose above the rest. "I don't want to fight alone. I want you all beside me," he said, his words trembling yet infused with determination. "If I have this chance, I need you all to believe in it as much as I do." A ripple of sincerity flowed through the crowd, tying us together in a concerted vow. "We believe, Dad," I affirmed, squeezing Danny's hand tighter, knowing how swiftly things could change. "We're in this as a family, fighting alongside you. No one has to bear this burden alone." And as the room filled with the sound of shared resolve, a wave of love surged amongst us, an unyielding force that refused to bend or break as we embodied the unquenchable spirit of hope. This was our moment, the embodiment of family, the connection that bridged fears and promises. In that heart-stirring instance, standing in the warmth of love, I realized that even in the face of uncertain battles to come, we found our way home. "Together," my father echoed softly, his eyes alight with gratitude, determination flickering in their depths. And then, with one last glance around the room, I felt an overwhelming sense of belonging sweep over me. In that moment, we understood that regardless of the pain, the heartache, or the uncertain road ahead, love would guide us through every heartbreak. Sometimes, the most profound sacrifices ignited the deepest forms of love. Even when the struggle felt insurmountable, it was always worth it for the heartbeat of family. As I clasped Danny's hand tighter, an anchor of unshakable faith, I whispered, "I love you, Dad. We're here always." And with that promise swirling in the ambience, I realized that though the journey ahead might be marked by fear and uncertainty, it would also be filled with love that could withstand it all. Together, we would reconstruct the very foundation of our hearts, solidifying the belief that love had the power to change everything. That in this moment, we were indeed unstoppable, bound by an unwavering love that danced in defiance of the storms ahead. As I held my brother's small hand in mine, the silence wrapped around us like a warm embrace, and I whispered the words that lingered in my heart, words that rang clearer than ever before: "As long as we fight together, the flame of hope will never dim."